everybody, it's Mary Z back once again for Voice Hacks. So if you follow the metal and rock news at all, you'll probably have heard that the singer of Bring Me the Horizon, Oli Sykes, had a vocal injury. It made the headlines a few days ago. Many of their shows have been canceled until further notice. He needs to be on total vocal rest. Some of the headlines have said vocal rupture. Some of them said vocal injuries. What I wanted to talk about is what is a vocal cord hemorrhage and what is a vocal rupture. You know, the trolls were out right away trying to say that he doesn't really scream very much anymore, so it doesn't make sense for his voice to be injured. But we're going to take a look at a lot of reasons that you could get this type of injury. First of all, what is a vocal cord hemorrhage or rupture? Is Oli Sykes' career over? Can he heal from this? Is he going to ruin his voice forever? Will it be different when he heals? Mostly the answer is he should recover fine. I just want to start off by reminding everybody that though I'm a vocal coach, it's very similar to being a personal trainer at the gym, and it's not the same as being a medical professional. So I'm not a laryngologist or a doctor or a nurse or any type of medical professional. You cannot substitute my advice for that of a medical professional. So if you feel like you have an injury or something, this video is not going to give you magic tips to make it heal or anything like that. You really need to see a physician. Generally, when we talk about a hemorrhage, now a lot of the headlines said Oli had a rupture. So let's talk about that. Hemorrhage versus rupture. Hemorrhage typically implies that a blood vessel inside of the surface of the vocal fold has burst, that the vessel itself has ruptured, and now fluid, mainly blood, is filling that cord. And typically when it's engorged with that fluid from the burst blood vessel, it is hard to move. Most people who have experienced this scenario say it's often like a switch. The blood vessel bursts, the vocal fold fills with blood, and it's like a switch, and they can't sing suddenly. Suddenly it's like their voice is cut off, which might give the person experiencing the hemorrhage the impression that this is going to be permanent. But typically with rest, everything I've ever seen or researched or been taught says that with rest, most hemorrhaging like that inside of the vocal fold itself can heal with proper rest and go back to normal. So what's the difference now between that and a rupture? Well, when the headlines say rupture, I don't know if they really mean hemorrhage. I'm not Oli Sykes' vocal doctor, so I don't actually really know. Or if they actually mean rupture, because they could mean just rupturing of the blood vessel, and then that's a hemorrhage. But if the actual exterior surface, the mucous membrane of the cord ruptures, then the cord itself is ruptured and there's now blood escaping. This could be due to a number of factors, but it could be typically taking place after prolonged hemorrhaging or prolonged issues. Now, everybody's going to start jumping to these conclusions that Oli Sykes' singing is terrible and that's what's caused his injury, or that, he can't scream well enough anymore and then that's what did it. Everybody's going to point their fingers and say that there's something that did it, but there's a million factors and we can't actually know which one of those factors is the real reason. It could also be a combination of these factors. So could you get a vocal cord hemorrhage? We want to try to prevent these. Yes, it is possible for anyone to happen. But what are scenarios when they typically happen? So behaviors that could cause it could be shouting or singing out of nowhere without warming up. You want to draw blood to your cords, and you want to draw blood to your face, and you want to dilate the blood vessels before you begin to sing, because you do not want them to be tight and cold when you just go to do a high note and you put all this pressure on that area. Your blood pressure, it could be a factor. Medications people take could be a factor. This is why we need to be mindful and talk with our physicians if we're on any sort of NSAID routine. That stands for non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. When we take those, it can make us prone to vocal fold hemorrhaging, particularly things like aspirin and ibuprofen, naproxen. These are all NSAIDs. We just need to be careful about what we say caused the hemorrhage. Other things that can cause hemorrhaging besides not warming up and the drugs that you take are just incorrect technique, pushing too hard from the throat instead of using your air to perform the work, and also maybe shouting, singing a little bit too high or out of your range. So when somebody shouts and they're using incorrect technique, their vocal folds are slamming together. They're slapping, essentially. This also can be caused when our compression muscles are too weak to draw the surface together with finesse and control. We can get a lot of slapping and slamming in there. That can cause hemorrhaging because typically we're slapping these delicate mucous membranes. Imagine the surface of your eye being slapped. We just don't have a lot of nerve endings in this particular area as far as our tactile sensations are concerned. So we don't actually feel how hard they're slapping and how awful I think that would feel. Some of that slapping and repeated swelling can essentially cause like bruising and vascular weakness. And then before you know it, we're breaking the blood vessels, we're popping them, we're hemorrhaging, etc. Then if you continue that slapping, you're going to maybe cause that tender surface to rupture because while a hemorrhage is very similar to a bruise, the surface of our skin is not the same as the surface of a mucous membrane. It's far more likely to get torn open. I mean, Oli Sykes has been singing for years without this happening. I'm not sure if it was a technical problem or who knows, maybe he's on some sort of prescription that made his propensity for hemorrhaging and rupture much higher. Typically, though, I would say that if it actually ruptured, it's probably been prolonged hemorrhaging, and perhaps it was a technical issue. Maybe his in-ear monitors aren't working very well and he's singing too loudly. Even in the worst case scenario, people can come back from those things as long as, it's always a caveat, as long as they actually listen to their physician and they take rest. So I know all you Bring Me the Horizon fans are really disappointed, but you know, he has to cancel the tour and rest it probably for a couple of months, and then they'll have to take a look and see if he needs any surgical repairs after that. And then he will be able to resume normal function. Typically what will happen is once the person heals, then the doctor will go in and take a look and see if there is like a weak blood vessel or something going on in there. And sometimes they'll do laser surgery after the person's healed to make sure that that blood vessel doesn't repeatedly hemorrhage throughout the years. I know that a lot of you guys have been hoping for me to do an all-out reaction/analysis of Oli. When I was researching for this video, I wanted to find a good new live recording, and there actually are some, but the audio quality wasn't very good, and also there appeared to be a lot of backing vocal tracks. I actually couldn't tell where sometimes his voice was and where it was a track, and I think that might have just been the overall mix of the videos that I was finding, and it's very early on into the year, so I was only searching for since 2019, but I would actually like to do that in a totally separate video. I will say he does 3 things, but all 3 of these things can be performed totally correctly without causing damage. I can't really say that these things are being performed incorrectly or not. To me, when I've heard him, for the most part, they don't sound super incorrect, but I need to sit down and take a look at it. He does raspy singing, shouting or pitch, any sort of voice with distortion he does. Lots of pitched shouting and pitched singing with distortion. Hey! Those type of things. Then he also does fry screaming, and he also does just regular clean singing and also sort of like clean pitched shouting. And we can do all of these things if we have taken lessons and learned our technique from the correct tissues and with the correct air support, and we won't experience these same type of injuries necessarily. However, as I've been mentioning in this video, there's a number of contributing factors. Perhaps it was one of these things where he thought because he isn't screaming very much anymore, that he didn't need to continue with certain habits he learned. I don't know. But maybe he naively thought, well, I don't have to warm up as much because I'm really not screaming as much anymore. But in the new videos I've been finding, the live ones that don't necessarily have the best audio, they are performing some of their catalog material. So he still is doing some screaming. So I'm not entirely sure if he would be that naive or not. There's a number of things, and don't assume, guys, and it's going to be really hard. I know a lot of people love to hate the bigger bands, but you want to cut them some slack. That's got to be really rough to find out that your instrument is severely injured and that you're going to need to fix it and that you're going to have to take vocal rest. With time and patience, and hopefully with everybody's support, he'll recover really nicely and get back to singing with the help of his vocal coach. So thanks, everybody. Thanks for all your subscribes, everybody. I'm going to have some more videos coming to you, and I can't wait to bring you more content. Thank you so much, and I hope that you all have a great day. Stay safe out there. Bye.